All right, guys, what's going on? Zach Evnish here with Aaron Ausmus, and this is another episode of the Strong Life Podcast. This is Aaron's first time on Skype. he was like, "Man, am I hitting the right button here?" So everybody that's new here, be ready for an action-packed show. Aaron has one of my favorite Instagram accounts out there. Music choices are clutch too. I mean, I'm impressed with the music choice, and I feel like now that you're out in California, you're really hitting that gangster rap.
Yeah, I really think being a strength coach all those years, you were, in a weight room with all kinds of music, and
I know.
definitely rap music has grown on me a lot.
So this is what's so funny is yesterday we were training at my gym, and we live, you're in Redondo Beach. Is that where you're out of? So you're in a beach town out in Cali. I'm in a small beach town here in New Jersey. And one of the kids from the beach town, I go, "Dude, I'm giving you music choice today because I abused you through the last few text messages. I was telling him, you don't train like this. You got to train like that. You think you got this. You ain't got that." So I said, "All right, man, I'm going to hook you up today. You get music choice." He was, "I want country." I'm like, "Dude, there's a redneck hiding out in this town." So let me give everybody a little bit of background history. You and I, we met, I guess, through, whenever I say this comes out weird, I go, we met through the internet. Sounds like a bad, dating, yeah. So we connected because you're with Team Sorinex. You're out in the West Coast. Your Instagram videos were just firing me up, man. You were just destroying stuff. I was like, man, this guy's legit. The music, of course, firing me up. And then you were posting, you had your own Instagram. And everybody listening, I will link all of these up at undergroundstrength.tv. But then you started doing the pen and paper strength app, just writing these amazing workouts. And dude, those workouts are tough. Do you do those? Is that the workout you do?
I do about 90% of those. Most of the time, I've either done them a week ahead or maybe the day before.
Yep.
And sometimes, I write those up with maybe a plan to do them the next day, and it's funny when you hold yourself accountable.
Yes.
Written down, and that was kind of the whole purpose of my whole career was anytime I trained as a strength coach, I kind of wrote it down on a piece of paper, and I walked out there and I knew if I had a plan,
Yep,
and I held myself accountable to the plan, how much better it becomes rather than just randomly go out. Well, I feel like bench pressing today because that's something I like to do.
sure.
Or hey, I'm going to do bent over rows because that's one of my favorites. And then you're done. So instead, the plan by writing it down is put some things in there that maybe I don't like because I know I need to do it.
Yeah.
And it's more of an accountability deal.
It's like you don't want to let yourself down. So let's get into a little bit of background with you. You were a collegiate strength conditioning coach for about, was it 20 years, 19 years?
16 and a half.
16 and a half years. I think I'm a little older I'm 40. How old are you now? 41. So, man, we're still crushing it, but you are really destroying me on the numbers. Let's give everybody a little bit of a background. 2-time All-American. Let's talk about give a little bit of a context to your sport career and then the different universities. You were at some big universities for strength and conditioning, and real interesting because now you're no longer in the university strength and conditioning sector. You're working with Team Sorinex, great guys, and it's going to be cool to kind of hear your story, and then we're going to tackle some of these Instagram questions. So a little bit of background. Let's hear it.
Background was definitely always an athlete growing up. Early was basketball, baseball. Never did go into football. Mom never would let me play.
Yeah.
And, so once I got into high school, the basketball, baseball kind of bug, it kind of went away. So I started picking up weight training. And by the end of my sophomore year, track coach handed me a shot put. Said, "I want you to meet me at the track today, and I want you to throw this. You're going to like it. We'll see." So. And it was something instant. There's something I could compete against. There's something this weight training actually is going to go towards.
Yep.
And it's an individual sport. So it was like, wow, this is everything that I like. I like to lift weights. I like to get stronger. If I get stronger, I throw this implement farther. So it's like, man, this is a perfect world for me. So by the time I was a senior, I won the state championship in the
Where
shot and the disc.
where were you? What state did you grow up in?
This was Campbell County High School in La Follette, Tennessee.
Yep.
Small town, but it was the first. It was the first state championship of any kind as a male athlete in the school's history.
Wow.
So it was like, whoa, at the time. So right away, can I go shut this door?
Yeah, whatever. We're all good.
Getting quiet.
No sweat. Everybody listening anyway knows that I don't have any editing skills, so it's like everything's just completely unedited.
I was putting the sauce out. I'm like, let me shut my screen door.
There's usually every time I do a podcast, there's like dogs barking, babies crying, so it's all good, man. So go ahead. You win a state title, senior year.
Finished it off, and this is time to go walk on at Tennessee. Really late bloomer in the track park. I didn't start throwing big marks till late senior year, so the scholarship and all that money usually gets divvied up about a year ahead.
Yep.
So I walked up to the track coach, which was about 45 minutes away, during a meet, and I was like, "Hey, I'm going to come walk on." He's like, "I don't even. Who are you? What's your name? Like, what do you mean you're going to walk on? You got to get invited and all this stuff." So told him about me. We got to talking on the phone and got accepted into school. And I mean, I had to like back up. He's like, "Are you accepted into school?" I'm like, "Well, I don't know." So I had to go back, take the ACT, get a score, get accepted, and then he's like, "Once you do those steps, then you call me back."
Yep.
So ended up walking on, and of course, I redshirted. I was probably 220 pounds as a collegiate shot putter. I'm probably 50 pounds undersized at that point. So I needed a red shirt. I needed to actually be coached. I kind of self-taught myself to throw so far. And my second year, which would have been my redshirt freshman year, I was introduced to a strength coach. He came in and was hired under John Stuckey of Tommy Moffitt, who's now
Oh, wow.
LSU. So a lot of my coaching and philosophy and how I trained is really was taught by Tommy.
Yes.
And so Tommy worked with me all the way up to my senior year, and really taught me how to train. Really coached me intense. Taught me the things about how he mentored me, those types of things. And at the time, I really still didn't know where I was going to go in a career. I was just into what I was doing: throw far, lift weights, get strong, and and trying to do it the best I could. By the time I was a junior, which was my fourth year, I won an NCAA title in the shot put. And again, it's kind of these first time deals. It was the first time a thrower in any throwing event had won his title at Tennessee. So it's like, whoa, this is like.
Where were you, Chad? At UTC, Chattanooga, or?
Knoxville.
Oh, Knoxville. Yep.
Orange, yeah, Tennessee. So Tommy left to go to Miami as his first head job. During my senior year, pretty tough time for me. Here's the guy that kind of had me under his wing for almost 4 years, and he developed his trust and his faith and all these things this guy's doing for you. And when someone like that leaves, and even though now I understand why, he was assistant strength coach to go be a head strength coach at the U Miami. So great for him, and I was a little butt hurt, but adjusted. And the guy that came in to replace him happened to be Chris Carlisle, who head strength coach now at the Seattle Seahawks with Pete Carroll. And
Yeah.
so, Chris was he finished my season off as a senior, and right away I was coming to that pivotal point, that crossroads, saying, what am I going to do in my life? I just now get my degree. Well, Chris kind of approached me, Coach Carlisle, was like, "Hey, I think you could be a really good grad assistant in the weight room for us, and Coach Stuckey's going to talk to you." And so sure enough, it's like the next day I'm out there doing. I remember this just like it was yesterday. I was doing RDLs. Coach Stuckey walked up. He waited for me to finish my set. I'm like, he rarely talked to me anyway. The head strength coach and said, "Hey, when do you graduate?" I said, 2 weeks. He said, "Well, I want you to be a GA in the weight room." And I was like, "Well, I've never coached. Like, why do you want to hire me as a GA?" He said, "Well, your passion towards training in this weight room has not gone unnoticed, and I think you're going to pick this career up and take off with it as a coach. If you just take on the coaching like you did your training, everything will take care of itself." So it was a great time. 2 years as a GA. first year, the football team won the NCAA title, the BCS championship. We beat Florida State, and it was just like, wow, again, first year in coaching, we win a ring, a national title, and I remember sitting in the office and Coach Stuckey, you've been coaching like 30 years, and saying, guys, do you know how special this is? Like, I've been coaching 30 years, and this is my first title, and I'm sitting here going, at the time I'm 22 years old, and you just win, everything you do is win.
Yeah.
It was a great experience to hear Coach Stuckey and hear his how hard he'd worked to finally get a title. And he was in his early 50s of age, and it was really cool. Coach Carlisle got the head job at USC the following 2001 with Pete Carroll. He invited me to go as an assistant, so that was my first full-time assistant job. Second year there, we win the Orange Bowl, finish I think ranked number 2 in the country maybe. Third year there, we win the Rose Bowl, beat Michigan, share the national championship with LSU that year. So again, probably my first 4 years as a strength coach, I had 2 rings from 2 different schools. And again, I'm sitting here going, wow, this is easy. But I'm sitting here going, well, I got to go be my own person. I got to go be, the head strength coach. And I got to find ways to make those moves. So my first head job was 2004 with Idaho, the Vandals. So I was leaving sunny Southern California to Moscow, Idaho. A little culture difference, a little change in temperature. First head job, walk in, brand new weight room. Here I am. I'm excited. I mean, the weight room literally just got finished 2 weeks before I got there. It walked in like a brand new car smell. And here I was. I'm like, I'm ready to be a head guy, and what am I going to do? And I'm just like, well, just pull out the old USC program, the program we brought from Tennessee to USC. Obviously we tweaked some things. Here we go. And, it was good because I had something to go by. But I had to start learning real quick to develop my own program and get some of my own ideas. I remember in the summer, the first year, we had so many guys with blown up hamstrings from the program. We're dealing with a little different athletic level from a USC to an Idaho. So those are the things I had to learn, So was only there about a year, one season, and then I went to Ole Miss back in the SEC with Coach Ogeron, 2005, and that 1 year as a head guy, thank God I got that in, because the mistakes that you learn from, just getting in front of the team and talking, finding motivational tactics and all that, those are the things you don't learn as an assistant. You don't learn those things until you're a head guy. That prepared me so much to go to Ole Miss, and it was a really, for me, it was getting close to home. I was probably about a 7-hour drive from where I grew up. Great school, great facility, another brand new indoor practice facility, brand new weight room. So we were there 3 years, and we didn't win a lot. We were the team that almost beat a lot of big teams and just didn't do it. And after 3 years, we all got fired. Definitely was my first experience of being fired. I was in my probably early 30s at the time, and it was kind of one of those deals where you don't know about that till you go through it, and you see your friends, you see it happen to other people. Luckily, I had some protection with the contract, not a whole lot, but here you go to go get the next job. Well, I got an interview for a job, and I didn't get it, and so that year I committed to kind of sitting and figuring out what's my next deal, what am I going to do, and so the next cycle came around in January. I went and interviewed for this job because I felt I'm more prepared now for an interview and things. So went to North Texas and Denton, Texas. Got the head football job there, and was just so excited to coach again. That whole year off, so many growing developments and just your mind, building a philosophy. How would I do it different now? I got fired. Why did I get fired? And I got fired because maybe I sucked at this or whatever. I got to get better. And so I went there. I was just excited to coach again. Great group of guys. I remember my first day was we started off. I was so hoarse before we even got into the weight room from the warm up because my voice, all those things, it got out of shape.
That dude, that is true. People always say like, "Why is your voice?" People always make fun of my voice.
Yeah.
I go, brother, then you ain't coaching.
I got a good story. Eric Ciano's a really good friend of mine. Coaches at the Bills. He's been there quite a while. We were GAs together.
What's his name?
Eric Ciano.
Ciano.
Buffalo Bills. And the guy was always, he was a college guy at Georgia Tech. He's been at Buffalo now for about 7 years.
Okay.
7 seasons. He's always hoarse. And they did an interview with him, and I love this. I'll never forget it. And they said, "Hey, is this your normal voice or are you hoarse?" He goes, "Yeah, I'm hoarse. I'm always yelling." And the reporter says, "Are all strength coaches hoarse?" And he goes, "The good ones are."
That's so. That is so true, man. Those like those like short one-liners crack me up. Like I think my high school wrestling coach had this pitch voice that could just cut through a room, through a whole gymnasium. He used to like whistle, without his fingers. He used to slap us in the face before we'd go out. But my one-line story, like with me being hoarse, was I was senior and we're in the locker room. He was the phys ed teacher, and he hears this one kid like a locker or two aisles down, and he's just dropping F-bombs, crazy, dropping F-bombs. I remember the kid's name too. Coach Pagash is like, hey, he's got this voice. I can't even do it. Hey, watch your mouth. Like, I'm cursing like this for. Kid's like, come on, Pagash. I know you curse at the wrestlers all the time. The room is like, the locker room's dead quiet for like 3-4 seconds. He goes, "No fucking way, man." And just like the whole room erupted in laughter. And I always remember that line. Coaches could be, listening to you talk about how impactful they are on you. Two things struck me is like the way they impact you and the way when Coach Moffitt left for the U, now you got another coach coming in, you feel lost. I've seen that happen to kids when there's a change in coaching, because I think when you a great coach, you love them so much that you don't want to let them down. And then there's also some fear, like you're not just competing for your own honor, I guess. Like you just want to make them proud. It's another father, which is interesting. I want to hear about like two things with you before we like keep moving forward. You coached in different areas of the country, and I often tell other coaches, I go, listen, I might run a program for the same sport athletes, but my 4 o'clock group gets something different than the 5 o'clock group because the 5 o'clock has a different mentality, or they're not as athletic, or whatever the reason is. And then I'd love to hear about, you mentioned like changes in the program. So you had a certain style of training when you were at Tennessee, then you're at USC. Then, I want to hear about like, what does that program look like, and what are the differences in these, geographical things? Like you're at Ole Miss and you guys are regularly almost winning. Because I see a lot of athletes, like they will regularly take second place, or they will always lose in overtime. Or if it's a football team, it's like they always lose in the clutch. And there's the culture has to be huge. So talk to us a little bit about the training program, and then about kind of these geographical differences. See if we could, I want to pull some of that out and hear about it.
It was right in your face. Was I'm leaving SC in 04 to go to Idaho for my first hit job, and we had to do this little conditioning circuit we did on Mondays where we started at like I think we started at like 1040s. You had to run 1040s, and basically do 5 and take a 2-minute break and do 5. And the lineman had a certain time to get in, and the skill had a certain time to make it in, and the middle skill. And we had 20 seconds between reps, whatever it was. And I those same times that the SC guys made it in, brought it into this program, So what I was seeing was, this offensive lineman at Idaho maybe not as gifted and athletic as this offensive lineman at SC. So for him to make that time, like he was having to scoot to make that time, because it was probably somewhere in the 80-85% of their true max of running. This is an average time. I think they had like 6.5 seconds for an offensive lineman to make a 40. And you start seeing real quick that, wow, I might need to adjust these times, because these guys aren't as powerful and as fast. So adapting the program was definitely some things. And I think later in my career, anyway, kind of catching back up, I left North Texas after 6 months. I got an opportunity to go back home, Tennessee.
Yeah.
And, awesome opportunity. I walk in there going, here's where I started as a GA. Here's where I threw for 5 years. I'm now in the director's seat. I'll walk in that office and drop my backpack and fall to the floor and say a prayer. Like, oh my gosh, I'm back to where I started.
Yep.
I'm 45 minutes from the small town I grew up. This is awesome. And the thing was that place was only a 6-month stop for me too, because Lane Kiffin's dream job was USC. See, I was back to the place where I would love to retire.
Yep.
I was back home. So 6 months right after the season, I'm sitting here. I got the off season ready to go. I had a team meeting ready to go with the players. We drafted teams were ready to go. And I get a call when I get home that night and goes, hey, Coach Kiffin just took the head job at USC. And I'm like, oh my God. I'm thinking, what does this do to me? What is this? What's going to go on? So, 2 weeks later, Coach Carlisle leaves to go to Seattle with Pete. That opens up the strength job at USC. Lane calls and offers me the job to come back to USC. And then I'm sitting here going, man, now I'm home. I did the whole circle around the world to get back home.
Yep.
And I'm home, and now I got the opportunity to go to, hey, not a bad place, USC, be the director there. The Trojans, they've had the best 9 years of football probably in true football at that time.
Cushing was there while you were there, right?
He came in after I left in 2004.
Oh, okay.
I missed Cushing that time he was there. Got to know him because he still came around a lot.
Yep.
But here I was with this, now I have an offer. Of course, I'm at Tennessee. I'm going, well, maybe I can stay here. The new head coach comes in. He's like, well, I haven't figured out what I'm going to do. And then a couple of days later, I was like, I got to make a decision. I have a job offer, but I would really be interested in staying here. He's like, well, you probably need to go take that job because I'm going to look elsewhere for my strength coach. So, boom. Moving from Tennessee to Southern California again,
Were you married? You were married at the time?
At the time, yeah.
Well, I'd love to hear how you communicate all the moving to your wife.
two children. Moved to Southern California. There was a lot of moves in that 2009-2010 year. I mean, it was just like bam, 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 because there was a couple 6-month stops. So move out here, take over. Awesome opportunity. Athletic level, high level again. Expectations at USC are through the roof. Pete Carroll set the bar so high. He did such a great job, that whole staff. So awesome to come back out here. But back to what you were saying about adapting in different areas. I really think I learned so much by assistant coaches I worked with, and some great examples is when I was at Ole Miss, I was still really blueprinting that USC program, and it was so built on how fast and how hard you train in the weight room.
What were you guys doing in the weight room at USC? Like, what's
Well, it had a warm-up built in the front end. So we would spend 30 to 40 minutes outside, dynamic warm-up, speed work, plyo, change of direction, core work. So by the time they even came in before they did their first barbell warm-up, the lather, there was a lot of work. And the players used to joke all the time, like, you guys can't call this a warm-up. This is not a warm-up. Because there'd be guys throwing up in the warm-up.
Yep.
And so it was all based on lots of movement before you lift weights. Go in the weight room. Now let's take strength movements and facilitate a lot of the movements you just did outside. So, Olympic lifting, hang snatch, pulls, hang cleans, push jerks, things like that. Let's facilitate those triple extension movements that we just practice outside, like plyometrics, med ball throws, of course, the linear speed, things like that. So it was a complimentary program. We really tried to really teach great positions outside, come in the weight room and strengthen those positions. And the players really bought in going, we did a lot of things back then. This was really much before all the, avenues now. You have the videos and things like that. So
Yep.
you had those overhead things where a guy finished an Olympic lift and triple extension, and we'd show the Carl Lewis sprinter. We'd take an overhead, we'd put them on top of each other and show how the lower body, the ankle, knee, and hip is the exact same, whether you're sprinting or you're Olympic lifting or you're finishing your movement. And, they were like, oh.
So they bought in.
So now they're going, so this power clean actually really does something for you besides we're just doing something?
Yep.
Yeah, it enhances your speed when it's done correctly. Now, boom, they're buying into power clean. They're buying into hang snatches. And, what that it equates to speed. So, again, the things I learned was we trained at a very fast tempo. Coach Carlisle was the head guy.
Was it always full body? Is that basically like each lift session was full body, or did you guys split up or lower?
We trained some aspect of legs every day though. Monday was a lot of 2 or 3 Olympic variations of Olympic lifts.
Yep.
Followed by some form of single leg movement, followed by back and bicep work.
How did you guys break up the groups? Did you put like the big guys with the skill guy, or was it?
Yeah, we lifted the 6 a.m. group was we called it the bigs. That was our O-line, D-line. They were mandatory. They had to be there together. And then anybody else that had class conflicts that made them have to lift at 6. So it ended up being a pretty big group, probably around 40 guys in it.
Yep.
It was always, to me, the best group, highest energy. We would have a group at 8, a group at 10, and even a group at 1. But after the 6, it just went, oh.
What, the energy level?
Yeah, because you got so excited. You had guys like, they're committed to getting out of bed.
Yes.
They're like, hey, I'm going to come in at 6. I'm going to get after it. Like, I got up at 5 to do this. So large group, big guys lifting big weights. And then you go to the 8 o'clock session, and there'll be 9 guys in it.
Yeah.
Then you go to 10 o'clock, and there'll be 11 guys in it. And then you come back to 1 o'clock, and there'll be another 20, 25 guys. And it just never was the same. And we used to have a saying at FC, and we used to say, big man set the tempo. And I loved when a running back or whoever had to lift at 6 because they see the big guys that have to block for them and stuff, setting the tempo of the program. And we always told them, like, you guys that come at 8, 10, and 1, you should come and watch the big man train in the morning because it's at a whole nother level. And it was. And my job, I think, was like, how do I get these smaller groups, to bring and have that energy? And one thing we did was we would have those guys that, hey, come watch. And then they start going, they'll go, guys, you know what? I went and watched that this morning, and we ain't bringing it like they are. And we're a smaller group. I understand we're a smaller group, but, like, we got some work to do. So, those were cool things. We took a lot of those things. I took a lot of those things to Idaho, to Ole Miss. But what I learned was we always had this slang, the bar never rests, the saying, the bar never rests. Like, when it's dropped, next guy's up, boom, lifting. And that bar never rests.
Right.
And it built a tempo. And it built that in our program. And when I took that kind of philosophy when I was at Ole Miss, I got to be around one of my good friends, Noel Durfee, who's strength coach now at Duke, with Duke football. And Noel had coached me when I was an athlete at Tennessee. So we went way back. Well, I was bringing this program in, and I always noticed when we would lift, the group of guys that Noel coached were always way behind. I mean, they the whole exercise behind.
Yes.
That pissed me off. We had the room other stuff. And then we might have to go run afterwards. And we're like, okay, go get your cleats on. And I'd go over and I'd see Noel. And I'd be like, Noel, you guys are just getting RDLs? And he's like, yeah, we're just getting RDLs. But so I started noticing things about Noel. You know, a kid would pick up the bar, perform the RDL perfect, but he didn't pick it up correctly. Then Noel would say, hey, set it down, pick up the bar again.
Oh, make him do it again.
Pick it up the right way. And I started noticing how detailed Noel was.
Sure.
And it was really good for me. That was that learning moment because I was young and I was all into, we got to go. But Noel was so fine-tuned in all the little things. His guys lifted slower because he just coached the details so much more. And I realized really quick when we would go to Max Day, guess whose guys smashed Max's?
His guys. Because I always say technique is strength and strength is technique.
Smash Max's. We'd watch videos. His guys were in the best positions. Hit the pull the best. Caught the bar the best. Just everything. The details were so much better. And there was that moment where I'm like, I got to slow down. I've got to slow down. There's times where we want tempo. Maybe in our warm-up stuff. Maybe we want to gas them in some spots. But when we're doing strength and power movements in the weight room, I want that guy now to get that 2.5 minutes rest. I want to slow this down. I want the details better. And that was something right then was a teachable moment for me was, you know, there's times to condition, there's times to get strong.
Yep.
Try not to blend it all together.
All right.
And that was big. And that's something I always think about when I think of Noel Durfee. I always share with him, like, that's what you taught me. And that was, I've taken that ever since. And when I came back to SC, replaced Chris Carlisle, where that tempo was still there. Now I'm coming back replacing the guy that brought me there, you know, years ago, 10 years before. And that's the first thing I did when we got in the weight room, was we slowed down a little bit. And we put a little more detail onto our movements, on how we picked it up, how we executed. Even the simplest thing as standing overhead press. You know, finish the movement, lock it out, push your head through, hold the bar for a 1 count, lower it.
Yep.
You know, just, you know, get in there and doing all this stuff. Stuff like that. Bend over row detail. You know, really keep the back flat. Don't yank the bar and sway up and down.
Sure.
Touch your sternum, lower it slow. Lighten the weight. Let's do this thing. And that was the biggest thing. Is the players at SC were like, man, we're just getting coached up on all the little stuff, all the things that we just did, and that was something that I definitely had changed over about 5 years because I was just so into the tempo. Let's lift fast. Let's see how much we can sweat, and that was that teachable moment.
Yep, the relentless pursuit of excellence. It's for everything. A couple months ago, I had a football coach stop in the weight room, and he saw our guys. I think they were benching or floor pressing and trap bar deadlifting. And he's like, well, he goes, we do all this stuff.
Yeah.
And then I was like, yeah, I hear that all the time. He goes, no, we do all this stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to argue, but what you're saying is I might say I squat. So might the other guy. But the way we squat, I mean, what you consider a squat or trap bar deadlifting is your background and your feet too wide with your knees caving in, or you got a perfect stance, feet torqued in, chest up, abs locked in, shoulders back. To me, that's the deadlift. So what about the squat? Look at your squat all the way down, torso upright. Those are the things to me that sometimes the experts don't get that. What hits me too is, as you're saying all this stuff, working with all these football teams, you never even played football, and they bring you in as a director of football strength conditioning. Man, that is crazy, because a lot of sometimes people think like, oh, if you didn't play the sport, you don't understand it. But I never swam. I trained swimmers, lacrosse, I mean all of them. So, you know, what do you got to say about that? Like, did anybody ever say, Aaron, we like what you do, but you never played football, man. There's no way you understand what these guys are thinking or going through. Did they ever say that to you during the interview?
really, I think you make a great point, but I think here's the thing: I didn't play, but I think they thought I did.
Hmm.
As far as the players, and again, I was very blessed. My first job was with Tennessee, and right away we won a national championship. So when you go to a place like USC, who has been very mediocre for many years, 6-6, 5-7, 7-5 for years, they hired Pete Carroll. We come in as two strength coaches from Tennessee. These players are like, "Tell us what to do, man. Y'all just won a national championship."
Yep.
And then they're like, "Hey, what position did you play? You D tackle? You DN? We were center?" And I'm like, "No, I was a shot putter." And then Coach Carl was like, "Well, you have to be a national champion shot putter." And then there's like, "Oh, respect, man, respect."
Sure.
So again, you look at the part, you're in there banging weights. Sometimes I lift with the groups if it was a small group.
Yep.
You've earned the respect. These players, they talk to the track coach, who's the throws coach, and then the throws coach goes, "Wow, man, you know who your new strength coach is? They're the national champion shot putter." And they're like, "Oh, they knew Double A the strength coach, man. How'd they know that?" Well, the track coach, they keep up with things. So it's like, that helped me a lot.
Yeah.
Like lifting, that earned the respect of being a strong person. And then just won. The players, they like, "Wow, they won there, so tell us what to do." And when I left USC to go to Idaho, we just had 3 awesome years at USC. The players at Idaho are like, "Dude, we got the USC's program coming in. We're just going to win the national championship now." It's like, those things helped me a ton.
The resume.
That it was just like a snowball. Like boom, moved to this place, to this move. I had instant street cred going into these places, and it was literally luck of the draw and a blessing. How I started my career. It literally coming out like a catapult. So I started having to learn to coach better at these other places when we weren't winning, and develop some things and philosophies and how I'm going to coach and how I'm going to motivate, because after a while, that front end start, that coming out of the gun hot, it burnt off, and you had to start, like I said, a place like a couple minutes. We were doing, I think, a lot of great things. We just didn't win a lot of games.
Why do you think they didn't win a lot of games? I mean, what do you think could be, like, when I look at football teams that aren't winning, I think at the college level, there's obviously going to be a lot more skill work, a lot more strategy behind it. But at the high school level, like, if your team just isn't strong, fast, and tough, then it doesn't matter how many plays they know, they're going to get run over, or vice versa. If they're strong, fast, and tough, now they're just that much harder to stop at that high school level. I'm wondering, like, what's the change at the collegiate level when a team is just not pulling it together?
Yeah, I think that's a magical question. I know our first season with Pete Carroll, we were 1-4 at the beginning, and we went out to we had a home game against Oregon State. We had Carson Palmer. We went into overtime, and it was kind of like we barely got into overtime, and it was kind of like, well, here we are again, close to winning a game, and all of a sudden he does a quarterback and runs it in for the win, and the team just kind of piled on each other, and it was like that one win where it just happened. It's like that. I mean, I'm telling you, that was like, I'd love to know USC's record after that game, because it was crazy. We went on to win the next 5 games that season. Finished off, I think, 6-6. Got bowl eligible to go to the Vegas Bowl, but I just remember that one pivotal play, that one pivotal time was really like it turned the earth the other way.
Momentum.
Because we were losing. We went up to Washington, lost last second field goal. We went up to Oregon 2 weeks before that, lost last second field goal. We were 1-4, but we were a field goal here, field goal there from being 5-0. And we were going through the same thing. That one play, that one moment, turned that whole team's energy around. And like I said, the streak and ride after the one game for that program was huge.
Yep.
They probably won, 80 games and lost 6 over the next 8 or 9 years or whatever.
Damn.
It's crazy. So, um, I think Ole Miss was very similar. I mean, we were in the hunt at LSU, went into overtime, lost in overtime. We had Alabama on the ropes at home and at their place, went into overtime, just lost the game at the very end. And I just, there was a place where we didn't get that game that changed that team chemistry. And in 3 years, we experienced those, last 2-3 minute defeats where we just were like, what do we got to do different? I mean, we're lifting weights, we're practicing hard, we're doing our team meetings, we're trying to get better. Like, what do we got to do? So I think sometimes it's just that moment that can propel that team that teaches them how to win. And I know LSU and Duke does that also. In their weight room, they have all their fourth quarter victories on a column, and it shows the date, the score, overtime, whatever, and it's basically any game that they were basically behind in the fourth but came back to win in the fourth quarter, they put that up. So there's an example of, like, I think you got to make that important in your program. Illustrate that, and the players really buy into that.
The team.
The emotion of your team, if you're behind in the fourth quarter, and that's not a big, that's not a stat that's maybe in your locker room or weight room, you lose, it's like, we lost in the fourth quarter. But if you have something that's prideful to win in the fourth quarter, maybe it makes a big difference. So I think something I learned in coaching was you're going to be good at what you emphasize. And I learned that from Mickey Marotti, who's now at Ohio State, and he spoke on that. And it really makes sense. He's like, if you've never practiced red zone offense, what plays do you call? How can you score once you're within the 25-yard line? He goes, and you get down to the 20, and you've never practiced it all camp and haven't practiced it. Guess what? Probably not going to be good at red zone offense. Because you got to get out there and practice the plays when you get to red zone are going to get you to score. He goes, if you like Olympic lifting, and then he goes, you got to coach Olympic lifting. If you want to be good at Olympic lifting, you got to coach and practice Olympic lifting. He goes, but you'll be good at what you emphasize. He's like, if you want deep squatting, great squatting, you got to emphasize great squatting in your program.
No doubt.
You won't get it unless you emphasize it.
Yeah.
So it was a part deal. Here's the next part. You'll be good at what you emphasize, and then the next part was, but you'll also get what you tolerate.
It's interesting when I look at like where our athletes come from. Certain teams have this those athletes are always kind of mellow. They're not super intense. They're not organized. They're not disciplined. They just like, I'm just not into eating breakfast, or I just don't schedule. I don't check my emails. And then you have the other team, and it's like they're all dialed in. And even from the individual sports like wrestling, but it's the culture. I have a buddy, he's out of coaching now. He's a principal, but he coached a team to multiple state titles. And he goes, everything in the wrestling room was team. There were no individual stuff. All the individual stuff was outside, in the hallway and whatever, their Hall of Fame. But inside, everything team. He goes, because that's what helped us win, was like we emphasize team. I see tough thing with football is if you're, as an independent strength coach, if you're not working with a full team, you end up kind of helping develop some of the individuals. But I always view it as like that team is as strong as their weakest link. So you'll always have the kids that aren't strong, aren't tough, and it's like, man, it's tough for them. We got some questions here, and we still haven't even tackled them, but that's all right. We're rolling good here. Here's what I got to ask you, Aaron. This is pretty interesting because you had that, was it 1 year where you didn't have a strength conditioning job? So a lot of the people listening, I mean, I get emails from coaches, whether they're independent, whether they're collegiate. I get emails very regularly, often, from people that have a change of heart. They're attorneys, they're CPAs, they're kind of like these white-collar professionals, and something happens in their life. It could be they lost somebody, a divorce, or just they start realizing they're 40 and they followed something that they're just not passionate about. What did you do in that 1 year where you didn't have a job? What's the self-development? I don't know. What did you do to just keep the fire going?
like,
Yep.
what am I going to do? And I remember I went back and started calling my mentors, and I called Tommy Moffitt, and I called these people, and they're like, Aaron, how long do you have a contract for? I'm like, well, I got a contract for 6 months. And they're like, okay, so you're going to get paid these 6 months the exact same way whether you're up there coaching or not, right? I'm like, yeah. You got health insurance? I'm like, yep. And all that stuff. So Tommy was like, he's like, Aaron, remember those days when you're just sitting up in that weight room and there's like 4-hour downtime between the next time you coach again or there's a meeting, there's just dead time, it's like your own time, and you sit there and like, man, I wish I could go blank right now. He goes, fishing, driving range, whatever. He goes, go do those things right now. He goes, do those things for yourself.
Tommy said that?
Tommy told me that. He goes, all those times where you had to be there and you wish you had time to go do something for yourself, he's like, go do it. He's like, go fishing. Go buy a fishing rod. Get your fishing license. Go start playing golf again. He's like, do all these things. And it kind of hit me like, wow, you get so, just so focused, tunnel vision, just on what you're doing in coaching and career and the next job, the next move, and you really stop doing things that you like because you get so caught up into the race of my next job. It's a bigger school, it's more money, maybe it's more prestige, whatever it is, and you stop doing things that who you are. I grew up in East Tennessee. I grew up on a lake and going skiing and jumping off bridges and having a 4-wheeler and and doing things outside, just being and that was really cool for Tommy, and that helped me a lot. And then obviously, as far as development, I drove over to Atlanta in March of that year, and they had a strength clinic there, and they had some really, really good speakers and a really good lineup. And I remember Joe Ken really speaking on philosophy and kind of challenging the room. There's probably 70, 80 people in there. Challenging the room. I'm like, well, what is your philosophy? Okay. Was it written down? Is it a real thing, or is it just, something you say, we do Olympic lifts, so therefore that's our philosophy? So I'm sitting here going, dang, what is my philosophy? What is this? And it was a moving moment for me, because I think up until then, I was able to say, well, my philosophy is, I got a ring from Tennessee and I got a ring from USC. What else you need to know? And I hadn't really searched. I was like, what is my philosophy? So I went back and I got back on my laptop back then, and I started typing and typing. And this was getting long, and I was just like, man, who would want to read this? This is just, words. So that year, it hit me about, I want to build a coaching philosophy versus all these things about certain movements and things. I want to build a coaching philosophy. So for that year, I built this coaching philosophy, and I made an image of it, and I think I put it on the pen and paper on the Instagram account. The 4 pillars of a coach. And basically, that was that year where that's what I learned is how do I want to be as a coach. So I did a lot of thinking and a lot of searching, and it really hit me. And I went over this at Summer Strong, but I think it's important enough to say it again. I said, hey, as a coach, what do you want out of your athletes? You want them to have faith in you, bottom line. So I said, faith has got to be a pillar of my coaching philosophy. I want these players to have faith in me. And I was like, how much faith in me? I was like, I want faith in me like I had faith in Tommy Moffitt. I want that. I want them to have that. I said, well, how do I get that? Well, I've got to have faith in my program, myself, and my staff. So if these players see that we come to work every day and we really, really believe in what we're doing, they'll start giving it back to us. So our teaching progresses. So I said, well, how does that happen? Well, all 5 of us got to be teaching it very similar, having similar cues and all these things, and believing and talking and walking. I said, if we do that, we will demonstrate to these athletes, these players, man, those guys believe in what they do. Those guys believe in power clean is the best thing ever. I swear to God, those guys, they love power cleans. They crap out of power cleans, dude. They must believe in it. Next thing you know, the players buying into some power cleans now, displaying faith back. So that was a big pillar. And my best example was as a shot putter. I had my biggest stage ever on a Friday night. It was the NCAA indoor. Well, that was on Friday. On Tuesday, Tommy Moffett squats me 600 pounds, which is about 99% of my max.
This is a question. This is a question, by the way. While you're about to tell the story, let me read this question so people have some context. This is from CJ. He's from Jersey. He's a close friend. He had like a long beard, but that's half of the guys there. So here's what he said. He goes, please thank Aaron for putting it all out there at Summer Strong 9. Everybody's got to hear his story about squatting 600 pounds on a Tuesday and then winning a championship over the weekend. And then it says, winning a champion over the weekend. He goes, I've got kids and parents thinking they can't train for like 3 months before, a baseball game. So this is a great story. So you squat 600 pounds.
I had a 280 kilo max at the time, which is 616. And again, up until this meet, this is the biggest stage ever. I've never even been to the NCAA yet. I had thrown PRs every week, literally, indoor season. 4-inch PR next week, 8-inch PR next week, foot PR. I mean, I was on a roll. And here we are, the biggest meet. And instead of throwing on a Saturday, this event's on Friday night. So it's a day earlier than you normally compete. So Tuesday comes around, Monday we hit our normal, we hit our Olympic lifts, same schedule, get after it. Tuesdays come around, I know it's a squat day, and I'm off it, I'm just looking at it and what to put on the bar. We're rolling, we're hitting 3s and 2s. Like, all right, we go up and we hit a little over 270 kilos. And I smash it, And I don't even blink an eye because I had so much faith in this man of what we were doing. So all the other coaches, strength coaches, are going like, whoa, dude, he squats 6 bills, he throws Friday night, biggest meet of his life. And like, ooh, dang, Tommy, a little risky here, huh? A little risky, like, dang, all right. Well, I go Friday night, open up with tying my PR, next throw, PR, and win the thing. And come back, and they're all like, man, Tommy, we were scared to death. It worked. But at the time, I didn't even think about it. I didn't think that was risky. I had a total faith in the process.
I am shocked he didn't deload. I'm so shocked he didn't say, what was that, your senior year? Junior, I'm so shocked he didn't say, we're going to deload you. What was his reasoning behind no deload?
He claimed we were training so well, and I was kept PR. And he claimed that, like, hey, I'm going to rest you a little more in the outdoor season, but we're going to just keep training through because everything's working, so I don't want to change anything.
Yep.
So, and it's funny because once we got to the outdoor, and when we got into May, when it's last couple meets, SEC, we pulled down and started training less in the weight room, and my throw dropped a foot.
Dude, I got to tell you, like, I'm thinking so many stories. I wrote about it. I'm going to have to send you my book, but I wrote the story about, we called him the meathead. He was a baseball player, and he loved to squat, deadlift, farmer walk. And, of course, baseball season starts. What do I start doing? I start holding back on that stuff. I'm like, oh, don't overdo it. In the beginning of the season, he's like, I'm killing it. Hitting it to the fence. I'm hitting doubles, triples all day, killing it. 6 weeks into the season, he's like, man, I don't know what's going on. I'm like hitting singles here and there. I'm hitting a double. And then in my mind, I said, son of a bitch, I broke my own rule that there's a big psychological thing. Like if somebody loves to train, then the effect is going to be positive. So I said, dude, we got to get you back to heavy lifting. So he would come in. Most baseball players with us, we don't even see them. They're afraid to train. Their parents are still saying they're going to slow down. He would come in. We'd close at 8 p.m. He'd show up at 7:30. He'd box squat up to like a heavy single. He'd
Yeah.
floor press heavy. He'd like one arm row the 130-pound dumbbells. He weighed like 160, 165. Then he'd farmer walk. We've got these 130-pound weights. He'd put chains. He didn't do rotator cuff work. He didn't curl. Everything he did was like singles, doubles, triples. I kind of just let him go with it. And then he started getting back to hitting it. And when I was at Lehigh, they hopped on a plane for nationals on a Tuesday, and I trained them on a Monday. And I remember I told the coach, I'd meet with the coach. I said, I'm going to probably just deload them these next 2 weeks. He goes, do not back them off. He goes, if you back them off, it's going to mess with their head. He goes, train them right up until, he goes, maybe lighten up the weights, but let's do a lot of 3x3, 5x2. And I remember our last workout, they were just like throwing shit around. They were like working their stance in the middle of the weight room. They were just so fired up. And I was like, whew, thank God I didn't deload or even say it. And I've always shared a story with other coaches. I go, be very careful with announcing to kids, hey, we're deloading, we're this, we're that. Because then you start like, you become like this nerd, right? You make them smart, then you scare them. And I remember a kid would say something like, can we deload this week? What are we deloading for? I got like an all-star meet. It was an off-season they called it an all-star meet, and it wasn't even a full match. I'm like, it's Tuesday. You're wrestling one match Saturday, and it's not even a 6-minute match. And I was like, shit, you can't even tell the kids about deload this, that. You kind of just got to read them during the warm-up. And there's a lot of things I pick up on with my mistakes too. You know, hearing you say, hey, I made these mistakes. One of my athletes or the coaches said, man, the kids were just killing it. They took out the 600-plus pound tire. They were flipping it. And he's like, I heard you guys always used to use it. He goes, because this thing was all dusted. I go, dude, we had so many high school kids flipping that tire. It's not even funny. I go, I think I turned into a chicken shit. I started worrying about the 600, the this, the that. I'll rather use speed with the 450. And sometimes when you get too smart for your own good, you start taking your foot off the gas.
Well, I think I learned, as a head strength coach too, anytime you come up and announce, hey, this is a deload day, deload week, you immediately, the player's focus, intensity,
Yep. Yep.
And in your mind going, well, I want to go lighter on the cleans, but we're going to move the bar fast. Or I'm going to do these things, but we're still going to train hard. But announcing that deload, you just see it in their eyes. So instead, we just kind of said, let's just coach as usual. They're going to come in and say, wow, okay, things are a little lighter. Don't make anything about it.
Yep.
And just train. And we saw that it's a teachable moment. Recovery day, that stuff, and we learned, like, don't say that, don't mention it, because immediately they flip a switch, like, okay, I just go through the motions now, and then in turn we didn't get what we wanted, which was still train hard, but let's take some intensity, volume down.
Yeah. So let's close out with this. Number one, like, what was really cool was you saying during that year off, and I got to get Coach Moffitt on the podcast. Didn't Tommy, that I know it was like almost, I don't know, whatever, went viral or whatever, but he was the guy that like put up that sign that like, attention recruiters. Yes, if you're inquiring about like John Smith and Jesse this and whoever, like I'm not going to interview about them because they don't show. What was it? It's like they don't show up on time and.
It's basically don't show up on time, don't go to class, not a good teammate,
Yes.
not accountable, all these things. And basically, he had this list outside his office, and he's like, "Don't you ever get on this list?" Because he goes, "I will not talk about you." So if they ask about you and you're on this list, I go, "I'm not talking about him, next guy." But the scouts know that means, because they read the sign,
Yeah.
because they're not accountable, they're not a good team. Hey, show up late, they don't show up.
Yeah.
So it was pretty good. I think a couple of his assistants have taken that deal to other places, and it's very cool. Again, you got to sometimes motivate in different ways, and most players want to play in the next level in the NFL, especially at an SEC school like that. They're pretty much expecting that they're going to put in 3 to 4 to 5 years, and then just next thing you know, they're playing for 7 years in the next level. And you and I know that doesn't work like that. You bring in every recruiting class, your 25 signees, and go, hey, probably about 3 or 4 you're going to make it in the NFL. Which 3 or 4 is it going to be? They're all going to raise their hands. Because that's just that.
Yeah, I spoke with a buddy. He's in North Carolina and works with NFL guys. And I said, hey, man, might be working with this guy. And he was in the NFL, then he was out, and, it's what he does. And, to make a long story short, he goes, a couple of years ago, I had a guy who was in the CFL, came down here, could run like the wind, was 6'3", 205 wide receiver. He's like, could run like the wind, man. He's like, but there's 25 other guys in North Carolina who are fresh out of college who could do the same thing, and they're a little bit more on the radar. He goes, so like you think somebody's the standout, then there's 20 others, and he goes, man, it's like that person might just be a body in the camp. And you'll probably get into it more. I think, I don't know if I introduce you to my buddies at Power Athlete. I introduce you to Tex. They're going to try to connect with you for an interview. But John was in the NFL for 10 years, and he really hits home like you think everybody is, or everybody thinks they're capable, or they think they got the shot. And it's amazing how many, like the statistics show, like, man, it is absolutely crazy. But also what I was saying is the time where you just spent like fishing and doing some hunting or whatever you did, I got back to doing that too. And I think strength coaches were so passionate that if it's like, oh, it is our hobby. So when we're not coaching, I'm reading, like a strength book, like, it's like, like that's what we do on vacation. We're reading more strength stuff. And, with my son and both of my kids, but my son and I, we go mountain biking together. We go fishing together. We went saltwater fishing right off the beach over the weekend. And I'm saying to myself, wow, in high school, I used to do this all the time. I used to cut school to go fishing and to go to the gym and then get to the wrestling club. And I want to really emphasize to everybody out there listening, whether you're a coach or not, is I think sometimes we get so caught up in whatever it is we're doing, we forget to just live, to go ride our bike, to go fishing, camping, whatever it is. And
Highland Games for the first time.
Yeah, so Matt Vincent was asking, he's like, what are you going to do now? What does he say? He goes, how are you going to train differently now that you're going to take the Masters Highland Games circuit by storm? So are you going to train, you're training, I see you always squatting, cleaning, benching, rowing, like you're crushing the basics. You doing some throwing out there on the beach?
yeah, it's funny. I've had these subtle hints to go do this several times, and it's funny when going swimming at Summer Strong was I called Bert and I was talking to him about Highland Games. I was like, hey man, I know you did this pretty much on a pro level for a while. I need a hobby. I love training. I'm still really strong. I need to find something to like train for.
Yes.
So I got off the phone. I was like, man, I just had this aura about me. Like I just talked about throwing and lifting and how good that felt to talk about that again. And then 30 minutes later, Bert calls me back and offers me a job. So it's like,
oh wow, yeah, that's
He's like, man, good talking to you. But oh, by the way, what do you think about working for Sornex? And I was like, let me think about this. So I told the story. I went down to I was in any fitness. I go into the weight room, go to the same half rack I always train at. I can't remember what company it was. I look down, I set my bar up to squat. I look down, there's a landmine with a Sornex sticker on it and a mustache. I've been training there for 8 months and I've never seen that landmine. I've never seen that mustache or label. And I come home and I tell Misty, I'm like, I'm going to Sornex. I said, nice time is right there. I talked to Bert the very first day I trained again back in down at the gym. I looked down and there was a thing right in my face.
Yeah.
Like, let's roll.
What's your capacity with Sornex? How are you working out there on the West Coast? Because I actually ran into a couple guys like Trey Zapata, who was where was he coaching? Texas?
He was
Yeah.
Been there a while.
So what are you doing with Sorinex? How does that work?
So basically, I'm considered an out of office guy.
Yep.
Outside sales guy, whatever. Uh, Obviously, everybody we have with Sorinex has their own unique, I guess, uh, personality. So you take Dan McKim, obviously, pro.
You mean Big Daddy?
Yeah, yeah. Dan McKim or Big Daddy.
Alter ego.
Right. So my brother, just now getting on social media, a little bit older than me, and so I've been telling him to follow Dan stuff, and so from the Highland Games, he's like, "Who's that big guy
Oh God.
taking with in your kilts?" I was like, "No, that's Dan McKim." He's like, "Oh man, that's a big dude." I said, "Yeah, that's Big Daddy." He goes, "Wait a minute. The guy that wears the football helmet's Big Daddy." I said, "Yeah, it's the same guy." He goes, "Oh my God, I thought those were two different dudes." I was like, "No, that's his other guy. That's his other alter ego." He's like, "Oh my gosh," he's like, he goes, "My mind's blown away right now. I'm thinking like, okay, that does look like the dude in the helmet. Okay, now I'm
Yep.
get it." So, we all have our, Dan's got a huge respect in the Highland Games. Obviously, a huge, strong guy. My for Sornex for me is a coach and strength background, strength coach, thrower. Bert obviously being the president, he's a thrower. So we all have very similar just traits of how we like, who we are and what we want to be. And so my role for Sornex obviously is I coach a lot. I talked to a coach yesterday for an hour over the phone developing a summer program. I still coach. I coach now through the pen and paper strength. I'm giving back everything I got for those 16 years that I learned in that profession, that I learned as an athlete getting coached by guys like Chris Carlisle, Tommy Moffitt, Noel Durfee, those guys. I take those lessons that they taught me as an athlete, or that I learned as a staff, or how I motivated or trained players for all those years, and that's my way of giving back. Sometimes I write training programs. They look tough. They are tough. Put some humor to it, but there's times where I give back with here's maybe something you can take, and maybe you're with athletes, but here's another way you could say it that maybe will back up what you're already saying, and you can put it in a different wording as a learning lesson that way with your program, and so that's one way. Like you said, someone asks me all the time, like, "Are you ever going to coach again?" And I always say, "I've never stopped. I'm still coaching."
Yep.
Coach my kids now. Soccer pro, or not soccer, I don't do soccer. I coach baseball, basketball team, flag football team. When I go visit schools around the country, colleges, NFL programs, I observe. I'm getting watching other people coach. So a lot of times I'm brought in onto staff meetings when I go visit. Sometimes I meet with their interns and they give me their program. They'll be like, "Hey man, fire away at these guys. Like, question everything they're doing with their program and have them explain it to you." So again, my role is like Bert said, take your role and grow at it. So since starting with Sornex last August, I've developed, I started this pen and paper strength app. This is a way for me to have something to still coach and still feel like I'm doing things with people. Whether this message is getting to coaches, or I have a lot of athletes now that follow me and they
Yep.
just love. Not necessarily they don't go out and do the program, but sometimes they just love the common sense, the old school approach.
No doubt.
That he said. It needs to be heard often because, as you and I know, the profession and the strength training and all this whole deal, it's changed a lot over the years. When I was a GA in 1998, I'm telling you, the word recovery was never mentioned.
Yeah.
It was that word wasn't even heard of.
Oh yeah.
Never heard the word recovery. You heard, how do I get strong? How do you get your guys squat bigger? How can we get our players faster? And what's the best way to do a conditioning test? Whatever. The word, how do I get them feeling better for the next test? That wasn't even talked about. So my deal is I was trained in such that old school approach that I don't want to lose that. And I hope the profession never loses just the fact that sometimes you got to put your hand around the bar and grip it and get strong.
Yep.
And that's what I'm trying to bring with this pen and paper is I want to keep that message going and make sure these young strength coaches, with all the new technical advances and all these things, but still don't get away from basic things because those things are the hard things to do, but you can't get away from them.
Yeah. What have do you with work you're working with like coaches, teams, are you in touch with like people that are just like reaching out or Sornex says, "Hey man, this person wants a like a garage setup." Like Bert
Yeah,
was interviewed and they set up some you're out in so Redondo Beach is LA County?
yeah, LA County. It's in it's pretty close to LAX airport.
Yep. So who are you do you help anybody set up like a home gym? Like any
Yeah, probably my first one when I first joined was Eric Karros. He used to play for the LA Dodgers for all those years.
wow.
Right here in Manhattan Beach. Um, he trains down at the yard, which has
I
they have
love
two
dude.
Sornex.
That
Yeah,
gym is I'm gonna that gym is just sweet. Did you help those guys set that up?
yeah. Well,
Looks amazing.
the Honda camp already there. Since I joined Sornex, we added another one, bridged those two together, added jammer arms to the one rack. We've added a couple other pieces, Frankenheipers, but Eric would come in there. He's got a couple sons now. They're teenage-ish
Yep.
years. Eric's like, I want one of these racks in my house. So that was kind of my first deal. Was we set it up, and I remember the UPS truck pulled up to his house, and then I set up the rack, and it was kind of cool because I knew if I ever go to these bigger orders, if these a high school, college order, NFL order, like this was a great training tool for me to set one up in a laid back atmosphere in some dude's house.
Yep.
Now when you go out to these big projects and you get now there's school wants 30 of these, and you got to put it all together, and you get a team to do it. Now at least I'm educated about how these racks set up, how they work, and for me to help coaches when they design their room. That's another thing they use me as a resource is they want to talk to me. They'll say, "Hey, here's my blueprint of how I got this room set up. But like, would you set it up this way, or what would you change? Do you think the Frankenheipers are good here, or do you think I need a rack and a half versus a rack, or should I go all half racks?" And so that's something too that I can bring to the table for Sornex is talking through scenarios for their designs and helping them the best way I can. And bottom line, it's going to come down to like, hey, if it was my program, I would do this, but this is not my program. This is your program. So if you don't Olympic lift a lot and you do a lot of this and that, then you got to set the good for the way you do it. That wouldn't be good the way I would do it. But let's see if I can maybe help you with what you've already got going.
Yeah.
And sometimes they're just like, hey, here's my box, design it. And then I send them again. This is how I would do it with my philosophy and how we did our lifts and movements and supersets and things. But again, this has to go back to you, And I talk to coaches a lot about something I built in that philosophy was integrity, and that's your rules, your cues, your policies of what you do in your house. But the integrity part is how you enforce them. If you have great rules and policies that you have in your weight room, on being on time, shoes tied, no cell phone, whatever it is, great. But if you don't enforce them every day, the integrity of your program goes down.
Yeah.
If you teach a player on his first day what being on time means, but 2 years later, you let him have about a 15-30 second slide, on it, your integrity of your program just went down.
Yeah.
Everyone else is noticing those things. So again, that's something that I tell them when we're designing a room. Like, hey, this is your room. This is your house. I can help you in any way, but bottom line is it's got to be built for your program.
Yeah, you got to think for yourself. So
Yeah.
I always try to emphasize that as I go, be real careful of you see something on Instagram or YouTube, you don't want to just copy what that person's doing, because what if that person, like somebody like me with my shoulder surgery or my, hey, why don't your arms lock out, or why are you doing it in this style? Hey man, I'm glad you asked that, because the other way hurts my body. And I'm 40, I got a lot of mileage on this body.
People send me, hey, send me the program you did, while I was at USC. Hey, send me your winter program. And my first question back is like, what are you comfortable coaching? Because the program we do is the program we have faith and we're comfortable coaching. I'm like, do you know how to coach hang snatches? Do you know how to then don't put those things in your program.
Truth.
What are you comfortable coaching? Well, squatting, okay. Really comfortable coaching it? Like, really coaching? Well, don't put them in your program yet, but learn how to do those things. Well, how do I learn how to do them? Well, you probably should start doing them yourself.
Yes.
You can a lot of things by doing it yourself. So what should I put in? Like, I don't know. What are you comfortable coaching? I'm like, are you comfortable coaching jumping jacks? Yeah, I can coach jumping jacks. Well, maybe that's in your warm up.
Truth.
I was like, whatever it is, but our blueprint is doing nothing for you. It's doing nothing for you because if you can't go out there, demonstrate it, give great cues, and get the athletes in great positions and effectively use those exercises, I'm giving you nothing. You know, and that to mostly, I would say, high school coaches is very eye opening when you kind of give them back that answer. They're just like, shoot. I'm like, you gotta, what are you comfortable with? Well, bench press. Okay, well, we'll put bench press in your program.
Yep.
You know what you're doing.
What do you know? What do you really know? That way, when it's happening, you are. What was the guy's name from Duke? Noel. No. That way, you're like Noel. So when somebody's doing it wrong, you say, "Everybody, we got to take a break. This is how I want it done. Everybody, go back, chop some weight off of that bar, and let's do this awesome." Sometimes I got a program, following it for the day, but then I'm like, okay, you guys are done with the power cleans. Strip down like 25% of the weight, leave the bar out. Every 5 minutes, walk up to the bar and bang out 1 or 2 singles and just leave it there because that's what I feel, what I'm believing in right now. That's what this group needs. That's it's the art of coaching. And it sounds like you always evolved. You're still evolving. And I think that's like a huge message to get out to coaches. And I tell people, I go, even if you're not a coach, you're the coach of yourself. So even if you're the attorney reaching out to me who wants to change, you're an automatic coach because you're coaching yourself. Nice. Well, let's close this out. Actually, the last question, Aaron, this question's awesome. This question's from Tex over at Power Athlete. So they had 2 questions, so they will ask you the music stuff when they get you on the horn. He goes, here's the better question. Rocky or Rambo? Damn, dude.
I think definitely Rocky. Rambo, awesome movie.
Yep.
Awesome story. But just Rocky, the struggle. I mean, I think Rocky relates so much to people's life at some point.
Yep.
I mean,
what's your favorite? Which one?
I always kind of go back and forth. It's probably a 2-way tie between 3 and 4, actually.
That's right.
I like 3 so much because, he got I forgot the word they use in the movie. He got civilized.
I share that. We will link up that video when Mickey told him. He said it's the worst thing.
The worst thing a fighter can do is get civilized, and what that means is you lose that fight to go in and sweat and pound and do all the sessions, and you're more caught up by now I get my house, I'm starting my family, I'm doing those things, and you lose, like they said, that eye of the tiger.
Yep.
And I think that movie's a great way of I love the movie as a kid. I loved it, but I love watching it now as an adult, a parent, and those things. As a husband, because it's like, man, that movie has such a great story. And then, of course, Rocky IV, again, I had to love it because I remember going to see it in a movie theater.
Me too. I think I was in 5th grade when that thing, maybe 6th grade.
I mean, it's just like,
dude, what's like, I tell kids today, I go, you guys have no clue. I go, I went to see that in the movies. That movie theater is called Movie City 5. I go, people were screaming in the movie. They're like, USA. They were freaking out. I was like 10 years old, and there's, guys, late teen, probably high school kids and guys in their 20s. I remember I was scared in the movie theater, freaking out. Oh my God, I didn't know there was a book.
Apollo died, and I was crying as a kid.
Yeah.
Dude died? Russian punched him and he died. I was like, oh my God. And I remember going to the movies, I was scared. I didn't want that scene to come. It scared me reading it. And when, died, I remember the movie oh my gosh, killed the guy, And then seeing how again, like I said, just leaving that movie as a kid, I think, like I said, I was probably fifth or sixth grade.
It's
I,
I
I,
still
I walked out of that theater with my fist clenched, dude.
I
Like I
s-
was ready to like
yeah.
join the freaking army or something, you know.
That movie must have came out in like 88, maybe 89, and what's crazy is so now it's 2016 and like a month or two ago I was playing like the Rocky highlight training scenes on the TV while I trained, and I was thinking to myself, how timeless is this, that I watched it when I was 10, I'm 40, and I'm still like, like it just makes me nuts. In fact, before I opened a gym, I had Rocky 3. I think I had it on DVD. I bought a DVD player. That's how long ago that was. And I remember Apollo takes Rocky back, and then they zone in on the tough gym sign. And I remember I paused the DVD. It may have been a VHS tape. Took out a notepad and I drew the sign, and I said, I'm gonna have a gym, and I'm gonna call it Tough Gym. You know what's so how are you doing?
How are you?
I hope I'm not keeping you guys, but it's so funny because I saw the arm motion, and like a couple years ago, 2 years ago, I started doing the podcast, and my wife set up the basement office for me, but behind me is like, I don't know why she did it, it's like French doors for the window, and I'm like, baby, what in the world were you thinking? So when I was starting these, I had so many episodes of like my kids crawling through there. So the arm motion, I saw his arm. I knew it was somebody was coming, and I'll tell you the
I was
one
so thirsty. And I was like, I've got to come by.
this I'll tell you the two funny stories was my daughter like crawled through that door, and I'm like putting my arm out, and she's right next to me, and she pulled her tooth out, and I remember like her holding it with like blood on her hands. And I was doing, somebody interviewed me for a webinar, and the guy emails me. He's like, man, I hope our transcriptionist can type fast because you were talking fast. I didn't tell him, like, my daughter slowly crawled through, climbed over everything. And another time, my son he had so many of these Nerf guns. He had so many different Nerf guns. He would get them for, yes. So during a podcast, him and my my daughter snuck through, and they were shooting me with Nerf guns. And I remember they kept it on the podcast. He had like the big bullets, the little ones, and I say, man, like that's the best times. That stuff cracks me up.
And I'd be like, not wanting to talk to you.
I
Right.
I just let it happen.
Yeah.
I let it happen. So let me ask. And what's your name, by the way?
Oh, Missy.
Missy. This is Misty. This is a great. We're gonna do a closeout question for you because lots of coaches reach out to me. Now, Aaron was in the collegiate sector, but they reach out to me because I was a teacher full time and running my gym, and eventually I left teaching. So I left behind. I was at max out pay. I left all the health insurance, all that. So the big question is like, how do you communicate with your wife when you're trying to like make a big move? You guys moved, I think, 4 or 5 times, something like that. What did Aaron do? Any good communication to make it easier for the family?
Well, to clear things up, this is second wife.
Okay.
Yeah, we were college sweethearts. All that
So,
fun.
so yeah, all that moving, second wife.
So
anyway,
I got to dodge all that.
so
Yeah,
there.
we knew each other from college.
Okay.
So,
we dated in college, and again reconnected back in 2013.
So the college coaching is not for the married man.
Like I said, I think everything, definitely what we went back to. I think you have to commit time to, like we were saying, going back and doing some of the things. And I think I was very guilty of, like we talked about, I was just chasing and working and putting so many of those things just right in front of me that I lost some of that, lost some of those things we talked about. And we said we got together while I was still coaching at USC, 2013, and married in 2014, and so she's known me this part of my career a little bit as the strength coach. We were dating when I started as the strength coach as a GA, so she saw the very beginning of my career, at the very, very end. And like we talked all the time, it's I'm still coaching, and we talked about it, and just coach in different ways.
Right.
I can speak for some of the wives because
Yes.
I have friends, they're wives of coaches and different people. I just spoke to someone when we were at Summer Strong, and it's a lot of communication, and the wives are the unsung heroes really in that whole arena, whether it's from high school, middle school, all the way up to NFL. I really believe that they really hold their families on a day-to-day basis together in so many aspects, and I have so much respect for them and what they do, and I'm sure a lot of people out there that listen can say the same thing, because the day-to-day stuff sometimes that the coaches get to miss, the ball games and the teeth, different things that you just discussed.
That stuff's tough. I think
strong women, so
no doubt. I always say up front, I go, look, I wouldn't be able to. My wife oftentimes says you should keep working for the colleges, and I try to explain to her, like, if you're in football, you're definitely going to get moved around. But even when I was when I was at Lehigh, I tried to explain to her. I said, listen, as soon as it was over, it was over. Nobody was like, hey, thanks so much. Like, you're done. But as a coach, we're so passionate. Like, we don't know how to just say, hold back your passion, just do the job. And then that's tough for our wife, or for whoever, maybe they're not married, it's just dating. It is you put so much emotion into your coaching. I only coach 3, maybe 4 hours a day. And after 3 hours, I am rocked. Thank you, Misty. So I tell people, yes, great. Thank you. So I tell guys, I go, man, like, it is, when you do it right, you'll be hoarse, and you got to be able to have, I don't know if this come out right, but like, you need a second wind. So when you go home, you're not like, oh, I'm so tired from that, I'm not going to pay attention. You need that second wind. We're going to have to do a part 2. I think people are going to have lots of questions for you, man, but it's cool to see that you're out on the West Coast. I mean, sunny California. How bad is that?
A mile away from the ocean.
Dude, that's me too. My gym's a mile from the beach. I think my house might be, I don't know, maybe 2 miles, mile and a half. But it takes a long time for that warm weather to kick in around here.
And
So
that's the thing I hear, like, you don't watch the weather. It's the same almost every day. There's not much difference between a January day and a June day.
that is sweet.
Sometimes when you're like, man, it costs a lot to live around here, but then when you go down the road a mile and you're sitting at the beach in January,
Yeah.
and you're sitting out there watching waves and people in sailboats, and your kids are on boogie boards in January, you're like, it's not a bad place.
That's where it all counts. How could, aside from, I'm going to link everything up on the blog to your Instagram, but what if somebody wants to reach out to you and they're local and they want to work with you? How do people reach out to you? Do they reach out to Sorenex? Sorenex puts them in touch with you? How does that go?
It kind of comes both ways. A lot of times they'll reach out to Sorenex and just as an inquiry.
Yep.
If Kevin takes those, and a lot of times we see that person is somewhat out in my area, maybe in Arizona, maybe in California, maybe it's up in Oregon. He'll push it to the person that's probably geographically the closest to him.
Yep.
So I get a lot of those, I guess you'd call it cold emails, where it's sent to Sorenex, Kevin shoots it to me, then I answer it with, hey, I'm so-and-so, I'm out here on the West Coast for Sorenex. How can I help you? Let's talk about your project, give me a call. A lot of times it works like that. I think my background in coaching is, and it's crazy with social media, I get a lot of people that just private message me through Facebook
Yep.
or Instagram, and they're like, hey, what's your number? I need to call you because next year we're going to have a new weight room, or again, sometimes I got some questions about my program. I'd like to reach out as a resource to see if you could help me. And that's where I was talking to Bert this morning, and just got off the phone this morning with Tommy Moffitt, and we were talking about some stuff that we did with freshmen on their very first day.
Oh, yeah, that's
kind of de-recruit them.
okay.
And, And then yesterday, like I said, I was talking to a strength coach in the ACC. We talked for an hour on his summer program, and that's why, like I said, I've not stopped coaching. I'm just doing it in different ways.
Yep.
That's
Cool.
Through Sornex and stuff. We're being Dan and even, we're writing articles and
Yes.
and some of those things. So it's been really fun, and it's allowed me to again do some things now. Like I said, Highland Games and stuff. Now it's something to really start training for again, and still do what I love, which is bang weights.
Dude, that is the life. So I'm going to link up your Instagram accounts. You don't have a fan page, right? Or does no? So I'll just link up your Facebook profile, and I think people could just, if you're at a friend space, they'll just follow you on there, and hopefully. Awesome, and hopefully you're able to write a little bit more for Sornex now that they're blogging. And what would be cool is if like schools kind of out in your area would bring you in for a little consult for a day to help them organize. Right. The I would love to see athletic directors being a lot more proactive with that versus, why not bring an expert in, put the money and invest in somebody who's going to pay it back to the whole, team. So that's what I love to hear. We're going to close out at this. Aaron, this was a great time, dude. I had a blast, man. When I do this, I'm like, I wish I could just hang out with Aaron.
Hey, one more thing.
Yes.
Off the press.
Pen and paper strength app, shirts.
Got one coming to you.
Oh, nice.
A couple weeks ago on my Pass the Pen Wednesday, so I'll be mailing you one in the mail.
Cool.
Just something to, again, just to build that program of just, the old school approach that everybody really appreciates.
If people could follow that program, dude, I was just thinking, I was like, damn, there's certain things I can't do with my shoulder. But I'm like, man, I'll look at those workouts because they push me. You got a lot of volume in there too. So it's tough.
People that just started following, and they go back and they see, and they'll comment. They're going, I'm going back to the first one. And
Oh.
And then the best is when you get someone who had done it. That 1,000 rep one blew everybody's mind.
Yes, it was the 5 by 10 by 10, 5 by 20, all that stuff.
Yeah, I think that one caught the most traffic because I had so many people reposting it or showing videos of them doing it or giving me comments after they did it like, oh my gosh.
Yo, you know what would be great? I don't know how long you would go out for, but somebody takes each of them and makes it a page and you get it a book. Like I printed out John Welburn's Talk to Me, Johnny. See, I love books and also I'm like a nostalgic guy. I want to like pass certain books down to my kids. And I think I could just see like my son one day like opening up the book of pen and paper strength book versus the strength app, and he's in the garage and he's like, Dad, let's do this workout. Go ahead. Flip it to any page of the pen and paper strength book. And I just can't wait for the day that he's squatting.
Well, my buddy, he's actually driving to Northern California. He's coming by here in a minute.
Cool.
Grab my shirt. But we coached together at Idaho.
Yep.
In 2004, and he's actually got a whole 3-ring binder of the pen and paper things we wrote back in a whole new arsenal of material that I can now start going. Because, those things we did 12 years ago, like, wow, I forgot about that one.
Dude, guys like us want the books.
Yeah.
We want I only do all the tech stuff because that's where I know everybody is. And that's the thing about business. It's not what I want. It's what everybody else is doing and wanting. Everybody's on their phone. But I know that the meatheads like us, we want the book. Okay, bro. You are the man. Text me your address. I'll send you my book. I can't wait to rep the shirt. And everybody listening, this was amazing. We're with Aaron. How do I say your last name? Ausmus? Aaron Ausmus. And by the way, did you win the Nationals your senior year? Junior year, and then senior year, what did you do?
Senior year was a little beat up from some of that Yeah, I had a senior had a little bit of a wrist injury, which as a shot putter, probably the worst thing you can have.
Yep.
And all that power goes through your hand and wrist. So got a pretty big setback there, and then had a little bit of an ankle injury on my left. So that year was a really down year compared to my junior year.
Yep.
Still a good season. Scored in SECs, things like that. But it kind of just set me up to go right into strength coaching and doing those things. And I knew I enjoyed the training to be a shot putter in the action. So I knew that career was there. I was like, I love throwing, but I love the lifting.
Me too.
More.
I fell in love with training.
Yep.
Fell in love with training. And also for everybody listening, so at ZachEvanesh.com, same as Underground Strength TV, we're going to link up Aaron's Instagram. He's got the 2 Instagram accounts. His Facebook page. We'll link up the Sorinex blog so they can keep up with that. We'll link up Sorinex. I'm going to link up, even though you said Rocky 3 and Rocky 4 is the best, also if you need a quick, hit of intensity, on YouTube is the top 5 Rambo kill scenes. So that's one of my favorite YouTube videos, the top 5 Rambo kill scenes. So those of you listening, you could just Google that, get yourself fired up. And man, dude, Aaron, it was awesome. And I always admit to the guys, I get a little depressed when I'm like, but he lives on the other side of the country. We can't hang out. So this has been a pleasure. And everybody, thank you for supporting the show and listening and watching and reviewing, because all of the fans of the show inspire me to keep making it better. So thanks to everybody. Aaron, you're the man, brother.